we are there for another podcast with a lady, a professor with a lot of academic acumen. And it was a long awaited podcast requested to us by many academicians to talk on a topic that rethinking teaching and rethinking traditional teaching. So, Professor Lisa, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much for having me, Ali.
Right, just for audience information, right, Professor Lisa has got a blend and plethora of knowledge on academic excellence, acumen, and she is a sort of a guru now known as for travel, tourism, events. And recently she has appointed as a deputy chair for one of the quality assurance agencies, right, to deal with the subject benchmarks on events, tourism, and hospitality. So, Professor Lisa, before we continue on the subject, right, would you like take us on a journey that you had in your life from Lisa Wyld to Professor Lisa Wyld, and what do you really need as an academician in these days to be embedded in yourself?
Okay, thank you very much, Ali. So I'd always class myself as a pracademic or a bit of an accidental academic. I suppose this was never the original career path. If I was talking to my younger self and they were telling me that you're now a professor, you're now in academia and everything else, I would have thought that I was an absolute mad woman. So I started off in the world of hospitality, particularly in 4- or 5-star hotels and prestigious events and everything else, and sort of really fell into the world of academia by accident more than anything else. I will thank a previous lecturer of mine when I was at university that encouraged me when I was in the world of hospitality to explore what academia may mean. So sort of fell into it accidentally, but absolutely loved it. And sort of the career has developed from there. I've had the opportunity to set up hospitality schools and institutes of hospitality and tourism delivery within a number of different universities, been able to set up some bizarre programs, shall we say, or programs that are outside of the remit as well. I'm also co-founder of an organisation called Hospitality and Universities United, which is about blending the world of hospitality and everything we do within that with the world of academia to be able to make sure that what we're doing within classrooms, which comes into this whole idea of innovative and coaching pedagogy rather than that traditional teaching and what industry need. So yeah, a very interesting journey, perhaps not one that was originally planned, shall we say, but one that is definitely being fulfilling and still plenty of milestones ahead.
Well, that's great. I believe you've got a right person for the right job today, talking on rethinking traditional teaching, because you are a pre-academic profile, and in a pre-academic profile, you exactly might be hiring so many people in that respective area, where, for example, you see in academia, a person teaching management may not know about management. How is it really happening? So can you let's talk about the traditional teaching and how can we rethink about that?
I think there is a whole thing about how we redefine what traditional teaching is in today's academic environment. We can't get away from the fact that there are certain models, shall we say, or certain tools that we use that is very much about we have all the knowledge and we're the ones that need to impart that. But I think we really need to move beyond that and start to rethink those traditional teaching methods. It's not about chalk and talk anymore. It's not about us being the ones that are on the stage and having the knowledge and everything else. We need to move towards that model that is about prioritizing active learning, inclusivity, adaptability, involving the students within their learning and everything else. There's lots of assumptions, I think, about lectures, how they work, assessments, classroom dynamics. And we need to think about how do we start to better align the needs of all the diverse students that we have in this rapidly changing world. They're not there to be able to regurgitate and repeat what we are telling them. They're there to be able to be critical thinkers. They're there to be able to be active. They're there to be able to actually question what we are telling them as well, because in their minds and the careers they want to go into, that may not be how they see it either. So that whole idea of that didactic traditional teaching is long gone, in my opinion. We need to be coaching, we need to be mentoring, we need to be active, we need to be adapting to what our students' needs are and not just us being on the stage.
Yeah, because, absolutely. I would like to reflect on that, right? Because I believe the teaching should now move towards coaching, right? And I know coach sounds very academic, not academic, right? It's very elite, right? Coaching, but we should move towards coaching. So if I ask you, not as a layman, right? All the academicians who are listening to us, if you can define pedagogy to them, right? They've talked about andragogy, pedagogy, the core learning pedagogies that are needed right now for higher education, especially in UK.
So you think about the traditional sense of the word pedagogy is about the art and science of teaching, or the art and science of learning. And I think we can't get away from actually that's what we are as academics, as lecturers, whatever terminology we want to use ourselves, as facilitators of learning. That's what we are doing. We're helping to be able to do this and move things on. But I think it's moving away from the fact that we are the ones with all of the knowledge. We are the ones with all of the information to be able to give. And I think we need to see ourselves more as that facilitators of that learning, or that idea of the fact that we are sparking something within our students that we are talking to, and everything else that we are doing. And that's where, for me, that art and science of teaching and learning come into things now, is about sparking those conversations, sparking those initiatives that are coming in, thinking about the fact that we have students that come into our classrooms that are really nervous. They haven't been in the classroom for a long length of time, or perhaps their experiences at school weren't what they hoped they would be. They're a little bit scarred from it. We need to be able to use our skills that we have as academics to be able to spark those initiatives, spark those ideas, spark those conversations, and to be able to make sure that they're not afraid to be able to say, actually, Lisa, I disagree with what you just said there, because in my experience, it's this, this, and this, and have those healthy debates and everything else. For me, that's what pedagogy, what coaching and facilitating learning now should be all about.
Oh, great! Right now, we've touched around 100 people right now listening to us very quickly. But I would like to go to a question right now. So, okay, let's talk about transformative teaching right now these days. From a typical set of teaching methodologies to an era that we are heading towards, a lot of artificial intelligence. If you pick any three, sorry for putting you on a spot, but if you pick any three main things that we need in transformative teaching and learning methodologies and teaching and learning interventions in a classroom.
I would say the primary one for me is lecture heavy delivery. I didn't like it as a student. At any time in my academic journey as a student, I was the person that would be asleep at the back of the class or doodling and everything else. So I probably shouldn't admit that to over 100 people, but hey, I've done it now. So, but that lecture heavy delivery and everything else is something that really needs to change. That whole idea of passive listening limits engagement, it limits retention of knowledge and information, everything else. Fair enough, there are a percentage of the population out there that are very good at rote learning. They know if they listen to it multiple times, they will remember it and everything else. But that's not the way our programs should be delivered and everything else. The other thing for me is looking at assessments and how assessments are used as well. I am a huge fan of looking at authentic assessment, and something that students, when they graduate, they can go into their interviews and be able to turn around and say, oh, we worked with this company, we did this, we applied this and everything else. We need ones that reflect real world skills or continuous learning. They shouldn't be something that is a standard essay around leadership styles that, number one, they may not write themselves, because now with AI, we may be able to find all fantastic things as well, but they're not learning anything. They're not applying anything. There's nothing for them to be able to discuss as well. And also, I think the other thing is this one size fits all curriculum. I think we need to start to look at how do we look at the flexibility of curriculum, personalized learning paths. Should we have the credit values? This is going to be very controversial for some of the more traditional academics on the call. Should we have those traditional 120 credits, and we split these down into 6 modules or 4 modules, depending on the credit structures of our programs and everything else? I think we should have that continuous assessment, and that year means something rather than these little bite-sized elements and everything else, and authentic assessment. So that one size fits all curriculum, I think, needs to kick into the long grass, shall we say, and we need the little bit of reform going on.
Well, for the audience, right, the reason why you're seeing a passion, and while Professor Lisa is speaking, because I work with Lisa directly, right? We work together, and I can vouch for her. She is moving towards innovation. So we are running one of the programs, and she wants different programs for different people. So I can vouch for it, Lisa, right now. But now, so you wear another hat, right? So you wear the hat of that student who used to sleep at back of the class. So we are content heavy, you know that, right? Learning outcomes and assessment criteria and the weightages, first summative point, this summative point. What about student experience, right? So normally, universities, sometimes they believe that student experience is only that they have a volleyball tournament, or they may have some respective events or something. I'm talking about the student experience in the class. Okay, so as from a student's perspective, what kind of experience a student should expect from universities to be market ready?
I think this is where the whole idea of innovative pedagogy comes in, that links into those student engagement and everything else, whether we're looking at problem-based learning, whether we're looking at gamification. All of this for me is about how we create an environment that students can construct their knowledge within. So therefore, this comes into collaboration, interaction, higher engagement with our students, and also looking at some of those other, I suppose, softer skills that we think about that are so important for the world of work now. That teamwork, that communication, even possibly dealing with some conflict and everything else that they have within group work and that sort of thing. And then about how that then goes into improving their critical thinking, their problem solving skills. But then from our side, that then links on to stronger retention, because the learning that they're doing, what's happening within the classrooms, what's happening outside of the classrooms is more contextualized, is more experiential, is more linked into industry and everything else that they're going to go into. So for me, it's all about looking at how we innovate pedagogy, how we create those environments that are going to make our students curious and actually want to construct their own knowledge and to be able to delve into models and theories that may have been done many years ago, and thinking about actually how do they still work today, or how do they not still work today, and what should we sort of be looking at them in a different way and everything else.
Yeah, okay. And also I noticed something, Lisa, right? Because I've seen there are many professors, right? And they've got plethora of knowledge, right? No second thought. But sometimes when they come to the delivery in a class, right? They are not that persuasive to some set of students, right? Okay, let me take my example, and I'm not shy in saying that. Sometimes when I teach level 3 or level 4, I need to bring the terminologies that I'm using down, right? I need to start from very basics, right? And sometimes I need to really work on myself for the reflection. Oh my God, I'm teaching level 4, not level 7. So what is the advice I would like to give such academicians who they use very tough methodology or tough terminologies, right? If they're teaching business, they're going to say bullish and bearish market, right? Rather than need to let's talk about market. What is market? What is stock market? Advices for them.
For me, it's all about the examples that you give. I think that we teach students at all different levels, but particularly when they started on their academic journey, they come in with different expectations. They come in with different experiences. We've got students that are your what would be your traditional 18, 19-year-olds that have gone through that traditional steps from education. They've done BTECs or A-levels and everything else at sixth form colleges or further education colleges or anything else. So they're used to that educational journey, as it were. Then we have the mature student that has been out of education for a period of time. Then we've got ones that are juggling 2 jobs, 5 children, and all manner of other things as well. So for me, it's about thinking about the students that we have in front of you. What experiences are they coming with? Because that's the richness of the class, I think. Sort of your 18, 19-year-old with that traditional journey, a lot of them have got part-time jobs or even full-time jobs, but they've experienced things differently. Our mature students, they have got a wealth of experience out in the workplace, but perhaps don't connect the terminology that we're using and everything else. So for me, it's the first thing is about understanding the students that are in front of us. What are they bringing to the journey that we're on as well? And then thinking about how do we explain terminology? How do we use examples? How do we use case studies? How do we bring things to life by different means and everything else to be able to get people to have that understanding? I think the worst thing for me is when you have a sea of blank faces in front of you because you've just spent 5 minutes explaining something, and they looking back at you going, yeah, you could have been speaking whatever other language that I don't speak, because that's about as much as I have understood. So for me, it's about that understanding of our cohorts, understanding the students in front of us, using terminology and examples that they understand. Because if we've got a group of 18, 19-year-olds in front of us, there's no point referring to something like BlackBerry as a business, because the likelihood of them understanding or knowing that BlackBerry were a mobile phone company that was disastrous and didn't keep up with the times years ago is they're not going to understand. But if we've got a group of 30, 40-year-olds, they're going to get that because probably at some point they had a BlackBerry that stopped working. So it's about having that understanding of the students that are there, the terminology that we use, how to be able to get them to be on that journey with us.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, absolutely right. Okay, but I've got a question, right? Sometimes, okay, as a teacher, sometimes, if I'm teaching in any university, let us take an example. And I would like to be very creative, innovative, right? But from a module leader or an academic manager, say, please follow your assignment brief, right? Do not become Einstein or Newton, right? In the class. And let's please teach for next 10 weeks and follow the assessment criteria, mark them as per the rubric, and that's it. Thank you so much, right? What should we do?
I think there is something around the fact that we need to have that parity of experience, shall we say? And I think there is something around when we have those larger cohorts, they're in multiple groups and everything else. So we need to ensure that from an assessment point of view, we are assessing fairly. But also, I think there is something about that personalization of learning that comes from us and our experiences and the experiences of the people that are with a part of that cohort and part of that class. So you're never, in my opinion, you're never going to have a like for like in-class experience because of the examples that are used or the discussions that happen from the students and everything else. But it's about making sure that by the end of that 10-week, 12-week, 15-week journey, that all the students have the same level of knowledge. They may have contextualized it in slightly different ways because of examples or because of their own experiences, but they have that same level of knowledge. And how do they apply that to the assessments that are done that are hopefully authentic and they're not just your standard essay, but that's another thing. But those marking rubrics and everything else, they need to be there to be able to ensure that we can moderate, we can ensure there is fairness in it, and the fact that we are comparable to other institutions that are delivering similar programs, possibly not similar content, because of the fact that, as I say, they are also contextualized, they're also about our experiences and what we feel are important, but they have that comparability between something that we're doing in Buckinghamshire compared to something that we're doing in London or something that's happening in Sheffield or other parts of the country.
And what is your thoughts on, so like these days, right, we talk about hybrid learning. So I need to listen from you, right? What is your thought on hybrid learning and how do you think about hybrid learning? Is it really workable? And if we do not do that, I can resonate to one of the things that the Nokia CEO said. I believe he had a press conference. Nokia was one of the top selling smartphone. And he said, we didn't do anything wrong. We just couldn't adapt to the change. And are we really not acquainted to the recent teaching things we are seeing in the class, or maybe the era that is changing towards more AI, more different type of teaching? Should we go towards hybrid learning? If yes, how? As you being a part of that, you're a deputy chair now in one of the QA agencies, right? So you can tell us and guide us all. How can we go further on that?
I think hybrid learning definitely has its place, but it's not right for all students. And I think that's the one thing that we need to be careful of. And it's also not right for all academics either. I think it's one of the key challenges that we have as academics or educators when we're trying to move from that traditional, or that transitioning from that traditional lecture base to that student-centered teaching. Because a lot of people will turn around and say to me, oh, but it's whole about redesigning all of our modules, it's about redesigning all of our programs, there's time associated to that, there's the resistance to change as well, because I feel more comfortable stood at the front of the class and being able to guide things and move things forward and everything else. But I think there is something about hybrid learning is something that we cannot run away from. Okay. It's something that certain student populations and certain student cohorts really want to embrace. But I think from an academic's point of view, an educator's point of view, we need to get that right before we can actually put it onto the market, shall we say, because it's not about, I shouldn't say, dumping some stuff on a VLE and saying, hi, here you go, have a read of this journal article and we'll discuss it later. It's not about that. It's about making sure that we've got the technology in place. We've got the any technology gaps that are there, so lack of tools or training and everything else. All of those are addressed before we launch them as well. And also being able to look at student expectations as well, because they need to actively participate when it's hybrid learning. It's not about the fact that reading this book, reading this article, watching this video, and then pretending that I've done the work. It's about those discussion forums. It's about those communities of practice that become online and everything else. So I think we need to move towards hybrid delivery for certain students and certain programs, but it's also about making sure that our academics feel comfortable doing that with the tools that they need, the training they need, and being able to design really strong hybrid methods of delivery, but also having the understanding that students, they need to participate. It's not just a reason for them not to turn up to class and everything else. There is an essence of participation that is needed. But that whole idea of that high flex delivery where hybrid learning is concerned is something that is definitely here to stay. But we need to be good at it to be able to make it worthwhile from an academic and a student point of view.
For all the listeners, just to let you know, we are halfway, but of course, I may request Lisa to continue for 10 minutes more. Maybe we can even touch 12:45. We've got a lot of questions, right? And I'm just putting them slowly and gradually on the screen so everybody now can see. But I will not go to the questions before I need to touch something related to what Lisa said, right? So there's another fire on you. So it means that you say, right, hybrid learning, yes. Teaching innovation, yes. Learning interventions, yes. However, now let's talk a little about AI. It's a very sensitive topic, but we need to talk about AI. So you must be having a thought, or at least going to come on that, Chess. So now we all know that, right? Even as an academician, I don't again feel shy saying that we all use AI, right, for many things, right, for ideas and everything. Even if I need to jot down a few things, right, for a business plan, I use AI. But we are very strict on students right now. Oh my God, don't touch AI. You'll be called for a while academic misconduct and poor academic practices and everything. Are we heading towards accepting AI to be a part of their assessments and tools, or we still will be in a denial for the next 1 decade? Oh my God, students cannot use AI. Yes, we can use AI.
I always feel that the AI story is about like it was when in the internet in the 1990s when it came around, and it was going to be the worst thing ever, and it was going to stop people from doing things and everything else. I think we're in the same thing now with AI. It's here to stay whatever way we look at it. And as you say, there are so many different AI tools out there that we need to start to integrate these digital tools and AI and everything else in reimagining in our teaching methods. We've got a whole thing around AI-driven analytics and how that works within teaching and learning, and how to personalize the learning, how to do early intervention with them and everything else. And also to be able to think about the fact that those different collaborative tools that we can have that are there to be able to have that interactive learning. AI generation, we need to, of course, be careful about it, because there's certain stuff that are hallucinations. And I think every academic on the call has seen some very interesting referencing being used for those that students that have used AI generated content and everything else. But it's really good for creating those different simulations, for looking at case studies, looking for ideas and everything else as well. And also, don't forget, we can also use AI around virtual and augmented reality as well for those immersive experiences that we really should be having in the classrooms. I think as educators, as academics, we need to be embracing it. Our students are using it anyway. So we need to think about how do we use this to be able to enhance their knowledge and everything else. There's an exercise that was done in one of the classes a few weeks ago that was about AI generated assignments. And we've got students to be able to mark them, to be able to see if they could recognize which one was a genuine assignment, which one was AI generated, and some of the hallucinations and interesting things that came around, even around the fact that so Marriott, large hotel company across the world, but was originated in America. There was part of the assignment that was done by AI told me that it was created in Australia. Of course it was. So there are certain things I think that we need to start in. We need to embrace it, but in a sensible way. And also, we have a lot of employers out there that are beginning to ask students about AI and how they can integrate AI into their jobs that when they get them and everything else. So I think it's something that we can't shy away from, but we need to be pragmatic in how it is used and the benefits that it has, but also being able to highlight the drawbacks that some of the stuff that they have just is factually incorrect, whichever way we look at it.
Bullseye, right? Oh my God. So you're so great. I cannot, up till now, I know you're just 10 out of 10. I cannot. Okay, so okay. Now, there's another, now there's another question. As a tutor or as an academician, what is the safe environment I should create in my class, right? What is safe environment? And by the way, just to listeners, right, I'm just gradually taking all the questions slowly, gradually. We are not going anywhere. So we will take your questions. Be with us. Okay.
I think it's always for me starting off that initial class, that very first session with them is looking at having the discussion with students around what behaviours do they want to see in class. Because I think for me, it's not just my classroom, it's their classroom as well. It's their sessions and everything else. So not necessarily a code of conduct. Every university has a student code of conduct that students need to abide by that's about behaviour and everything else. This is about creating, I think for me, that psychological safety within the classroom to be able to set those ground rules, to be able to get students to be able to have an understanding of what they say within class is within the context of the class. That for me, it's always about making them feel safe, that if the answer isn't quite as we hoped it would be, or they've gone down a little pathway that they shouldn't have gone down, that's fine. That's part of their learning journey as well. It's okay to make mistakes. And I always put up a slide that says fail on it, which always sort of makes people's little heart go. And you can see these little wide-eyed people looking at me going, why has she put fail up there? Because that's not what I want to do. But I always put it in the context that for me, fail stands for your first attempt in learning. There's always going to be something that we just don't get right the first time round, or we don't understand the first time round. And it's setting those ground rules that there's no such thing as a silly question, because you can guarantee if you're thinking it, somebody else in the classroom is thinking it as well. And they're having that psychological safety that you can go down a little rabbit hole, but I'm there to be able to pull you back out, to be able to make sure that you go on the right path. But it's having that discussion first, and it's setting that environment, that ethos of that around the classroom first to begin with, to be able to make it feel safe, and that we can go down a rabbit hole. It's fine, because we're going to come out from somewhere else at another point in time.
Because it has a closed end, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. We just backtrack. We shuffle back, and it's fine.
Okay, so there's a question, very interesting question by one of the students, right, without naming. The student said, are we going towards exams again?
No, oh please not. No, I am really anti-exams, and I know that there's going to be other academics on this tour going, oh my god, no, we need exams. For me, exams are great if you have a very good memory, or you don't get nervous and everything else. But all it does is test memory. It doesn't test your understanding. It doesn't test your criticality. It doesn't test your application. It just tests how good you are at being able to memorize what you've been told. For me, there are other ways of being able to, of course, there's the whole discussion around exams coming back because of AI and all manner of other essence and essay writing mills and contract cheating and all manner of other things. But if we look at how we assess authentically, there are plenty of ways we can do that, and to be able to make sure that, number one, it's the student's own submission, and number two, without that having to be an exam and that we're all sat in this room with 100 other people and you're the one that's not writing while everybody else is burrowing away there. So please, no to exams.
So music to the ears to the person who asked, right? Maybe. Okay. So now, this is the question, right? What traditional teaching practice do you think most needs rethinking today? Any one practice or any practices you have in mind?
Yeah, I would say in the fact that whole essence of didactic teaching, in the fact that I think there is the whole thing. When I do timetables now, I never put the word lecture on a timetable, because I think it brings in the fact that when you put it there, number one, the students are expecting to be like me many years ago and falling asleep in the back of the class. And number two, for people that are slightly more traditional and everything else, they think, okay, I've got 2 hours to stand at the front of the class and just regurgitate everything that I know. For me, that is the one thing that just needs to go. Yeah, 10, 15 minutes of didactic element to be able to set the scene, to be able to bring out some of those key concepts and everything else. But if we start to get the flipped classroom right, or we start to get that discovery and that prep right to begin with, then we should have the classroom environment for all those discussions, that richness that comes out, those debates, those areas that perhaps we might have a little bit of a disagreement, but that adds to the flavour, shall we say. But I think that's sort of, for me, that being the person at the front with all the knowledge, and being and everybody else sat there expecting to scribble away or have a little doze, is the one thing that definitely should be going in by the time we get to 2026, 2027, we need to be thinking about how we move that along.
So, Priscilla, do you agree for extending this podcast? We've got so many questions for 15 minutes more. I hope you agree.
I am happy if everybody else is happy.
They are right there. Okay, so for the listeners, right, just to let you know, we are posing questions for next 2 minutes. I'm going to go for a rapid fire, and I can promise that this rapid fire is not bounce talk with Lisa. So these are, you've got 10 questions, and I will give you 2 options. You need to select one, and you will to think you only have 2 seconds for every question.
Okay.
So we start, right? So traditional lecture or blended learning?
Blended learning.
Flipped classroom or problem-based learning?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. Problem-based learning.
Smartboard or chalkboard?
Definitely smartboard.
Group discussions or individual projects?
Group discussions.
Online quizzes or in-class polling?
Online polling.
Online, okay, online polling. Case studies or simulations?
Simulations.
Okay. Concept videos or reading material?
Concept videos.
Open book assessment or closed book exam?
Open book assessment.
Collaborative learning or self-paced learning?
Collaborative learning.
Okay. Now the last, innovation in pedagogy or innovation in technology?
Innovation in pedagogy, because I don't believe you need technology to have good pedagogy.
Oh my God. 10 out of 10 again. Okay, now there's a question, right? And of course, we wanna keep. There are a few names. People say that let's keep anonymous, so that's why you cannot see the name. So, how can we balance the need for solid academic standards with the relation human-centered nature, coaching pedagogy? So it's more of embedding coaching pedagogies to teaching. 2 cents.
Yeah, I don't think we compromise academic standards by moving away from traditional teaching. I actually think we enhance those academic standards because we're getting the best out of everybody that's there, if that makes sense, rather than it being the fact that we're only appealing to those that have a really good memory or those that are able to listen and take in a huge amount of and huge volume of information in a short period of time. I think having those human-centered or having something that is more student-centered and those coaching or those essence of the fact that we are there to facilitate learning actually benefits our academic standards far more because we're getting the better out of our students. We're able to assess as well how our students are doing, how to be able to put in those mechanisms that are needed to be able to support them on their journey, but still maintaining that positive experience, but also those academic standards. Just because we're moving away from, or we are that consideration to move away from those traditional methods, doesn't mean that we're compromising anything we're doing from an academic point of view. We're just approaching it in a different way, and we're using a different method to be able to get to those standards and to that level of knowledge and that level of application that we should be seeing.
Okay, so now imagine I'm in a class, right? And I've got different genre of student in front of me. Let's say mature learners, right? Because if I would like to appreciate Buckinghamshire University, they are helping such communities where mature learners can come and have weekend study. So as a teacher, right? What should I reflect on myself, especially in my teaching pedagogies and the teaching intervention I'm having in a class from a traditional teaching way, which I should adopt, and it should be helpful for an effective learning in a class, and becomes active learning than passive listening.
And I think that's the whole thing in the fact that it's exactly that consideration and that reflection on how active the students are within the class. If the only activity they've got is typing on their laptop or writing down with a piece of paper and a pen, then I think we've got to consider actually what we are doing, because it should be all about engagement. It should be all about activities and everything else. But I'm not saying you should completely flip. If you are a traditional lecturer and therefore you feel really comfortable at the front of the class, you're not going to switch completely to being active learning, interactive, innovative, pedagogical approach overnight, because you're not going to feel comfortable with. You need to grow into that style as well. But for me, it's taking those little baby steps. Okay, is there certain things that you're going to be talking about that you could turn into an activity or a discussion or something they could be doing? Could it be certain different elements that we could use to be able to actually have that active learning, have that discussion in class and everything else? There is a really fantastic tool. If you're very new to active learning or very new to coaching pedagogies, Advanced HE have this 52 cards of active learning. It's absolutely great to be able to do. Some of them are sort of 5-10 minute activities. Some of them are more 50-60 minute activities. But if you really are new to it, or you're a little bit thinking, well, I do the same thing over and over again, it's a really good resource. But I'm not sure how many people actually go and investigate it and have a look at it and everything else. But I think for me, it's taking those little steps into, is there certain things you can move around? Is there certain things that where you've always told them that information, can they go and explore it themselves? Can they think about how to be able to do stuff together and to be able to get that information across and everything else? But I think it's, if you are very much that traditional lecturer, it's baby steps to start off with.
Okay, and there's another question that is raised. that how can students, right, play a role? So it needs two to tango, right? So if students are not really active listening to you and not participative, and the teacher does not get the right motivation, oh my God, I'm giving my blood to them and they're not just responding, they are zombies, right, in the class. So what kind of a role that students should play, at least, to not giving a teacher a tougher time, but at least they should be participated in what sense to the teacher. And they may, in a very soft tone, say that we would like this, for being ready to the market and maybe helping this whole complete framework to change gradually in baby steps.
Yeah.
So what
and I
the role
think
of
I think once again, it's those initial couple of sessions setting those ground rules, shall we say, for want of a better way of doing it, or setting sort of what the environment is going to be like, and that's the thing. And it's also about then changing your approach as you go through as well. If you know there's certain things that you're doing, particularly around technology and everything else, some students absolutely embrace technology and they want to be able to do all these polls, they want to be able to do their Padlets, they love a Kahoot quiz, they want to be there on Quizlet with the cards flipping over and everything else. And others are like that, no, I don't want to do that. It doesn't matter what you tell me to do, I don't want to do it. So it's also about thinking about what activities work and which activities don't work. So there's certain things that you can sort of, that once again, it's that those baby steps, that dipping your toe in the water and trying different things. We're always going to have the quiet students in class that don't necessarily want to participate, and they're not going to be the ones putting their hand up. They're not going to be the ones that's going to be the spokesperson for their group and everything else. So it's finding other methods of being able to get them involved in everything else, and being able to think about what other things do we have in our little toolbox that we can bring out. And it may be even thinking about a 3-2-1 activity towards the end of the class as an exit poll or exit tickets and things like that as well, to be able to get a bit of an idea. And sometimes that anonymous feedback really works in the fact and asking them, actually, what didn't work today? Was there something that actually didn't land very well? Because there's certain things that we think when we're creating these things, think that's a really great idea and it's going to work. And you think, yeah, that didn't work. And then you get that feedback, think, yeah, no, it really didn't work. So with that group, we won't try that again.
Because we have answered. So from this answer, we have answered 3-4 questions, because unfortunately, right, I've just booked Lisa for 30 minutes, right? We're running to 45 minutes. We have got so many questions, but the only thing I can promise, and I can request Lisa, that when she gets time, she can read all the questions, and once she gets time, she can go on LinkedIn and respond. We can have a response to them. But I would like to take a couple of more questions, and then we conclude that, and we can have a 2.0 session with Professor Lisa as well. Redefining traditional teaching 2.0. Okay, now. So I guess, now let us put light on ourselves again. As an academician, what should we be doing for the assessment criteria in coming future, right, for an year? So will it be similar assignment briefs, learning objectives, assessment criteria again? So you feel a difference, right? And we can see in the next.
Yeah, I think, we can't get away from that. I suppose it's going back to the idea of the person that asked about, I suppose, in a round where they were asking if academic standards will be compromised by moving away from a non-traditional approach. And I think we can't get away from the fact that we are in this case, we are awarding degrees and masters and doctorates and everything else. So of course they have a level, shall we say, and they are the level that should be comparable across the UK. But I don't think that means that we are stuck, shall we say, being able to have to continue to do things in a traditional way where assessments are concerned. Yeah, we need to assess our students, we need to assess knowledge, we need to assess skills and behaviors and all of those things that the industry, whatever industry they're going to, whatever job role they're going to go into, they want to be sure that they have an understanding of and they have an application of. But I think for me, it's moving away from those traditional approaches. It's moving away. We have to mark against a criteria, but what that criteria will look like in the future, or even in the very near future, will depend on how we actually start to look at those assessments and how they apply to the real world outside of academia. For me, it is about working with industry, about working with different practitioners that are still in industry and everything else, and looking at how do we bring things to life in the classroom, and how do we therefore bring the assessments to life, whether it's live briefs, whether it's looking at working with industry, whether it's doing various different elements around pitching and elevators pitches, presentations, proposals, and all manner of other things, but things that are real to life rather than, but they still have that academic rigor, still have that academic standards and everything else. But looking at how do we switch things around so we're slightly less traditional, shall we say? Making a podcast, as an example, is a really way to be able to get students knowledge across, being able to have an understanding of different methods, tools, models, theories, and everything else. But in a different way that is highlighting another skill, but is also something that can be sent to a future employer going, look, I created this during my degree.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah. It's as an evidence. Okay, so last question before we close, but of course it's not a demotivational thing for all the people who have commented, but I cannot take all questions. We've touched around 50. I'm just reading out few, so I can do. Okay, so this question I'm asking you, right, it can answer at least 5-6 questions. Okay, can you take an example and let all the audience know the way we can apply, sort of bring in coaching in that teaching methodology, and we can make our teaching methodology or moving away from teaching better in this current world? Any example that, of course, this is what we can do, and this you might have done, right, while you teach, because I know you teach as well.
Yeah, I think for me it is all thinking about how do we change our classroom environment, how do we change the mindset of students as we come in, as they come in as well. And if you think about that whole idea of coaching, is that we're bringing the best out of people and that sort of thing. So I think for me it's how do we approach the learning journey, as it were. For me it's all about that scaffolding to begin with that pre-sessional stuff, or that just those discover activities, to be able to think about, this is what we're going to be doing this week, this is you're dipping your toe in the water and everything else. Then we have sort of that active part that is actually, whether it's in the classroom on campus or whether it's a live session for those that are doing distance learning or hybrid learning and everything else. But it's about then exploring those ideas, but bringing out those ideas, being that facilitator of learning, being that coach of learning and everything else. And I suppose it is about watching the students grow during that sessions, getting a little bit more confident, or being able to disagree with somebody or anything like that. But for me, the main part of coaching pedagogy is the reflection afterwards. And the reflection afterwards is not just us as academics and reflecting on how well that went or how well the students were involved and everything else. For me, it's also about how the students reflect on that as well. So I always have some form of reflect activity that is after the session is within the student's own time, but within the space of time they have between the session finishing and the next session starting. To be able to think about them reflecting on the learning, what it means to them, how can they apply it to the careers they want to go into, or how can they actually think about what bits didn't they understand and therefore need to feed back to us to be able to go over it. And that's where it should be. For me, the whole idea of a coaching pedagogy is a two-way process. It isn't just about us telling them what they should know, and therefore, and if you don't understand it, well, tough luck, you just need to reread it. It's about that whole idea of that two-way relationship and us being on their learning journey together, which does sound a little bit cliched and a little bit cheesy, I know, but it is about that idea of being able to make sure that our engagement is there with students, thinking about how they prepare, how they interact more deeply, and all of that is going to be able to come because we are invested in their learning as much as they are. And that's part of, I think, for that whole idea of coaching, is that sort of 3-stage approach, as it were.
Because there's one question I need to take more, right? And this is closer to my heart, right? And it's a tough one as well, for even us to answer on a live podcast. Well, the role of regulator now, right? So what should we expect, right? So you are on my side, Lisa, now, right? So what should we expect from OFS and other regulators, with having some regulatory aspects to evolve, like giving degrees to the students, right? Because the question, right, you would prefer degree over skill set. All the employers, they say skill set over degree, right? They do that, right? But of course, we do not really bring the value of degree down by saying that. We just would like to embed that skill set as a part of the degree. But what kind of an advice or suggestion, or the expectations we have from the regulator in the coming next 4-5 years, right? With respect to the changing paradigm of this whole framework.
Yeah, I think sort of course, we all know that we are governed, for want of a better way of saying it, by the Office for Students. We have our regulations that we need to adhere to, and of course the various different conditions of registration as well. So from a teaching and learning point of view, we are more concerned with the B conditions. They're the ones that we have the I suppose the most influence over and the most impact on, and all of that is looking at our currency of what we are teaching, and is what we're teaching current to the market they're going to go into and everything else. Are the students actually learning? Is there progression being made? Are they learning and everything else? Are the assessments we're doing, are they robust, or are we just ticking a few boxes because it's easier for us and everything else? We shouldn't be doing that. We should be making sure that they're robust. But that whole idea of the fact that they are being assessed against a criteria, so we can't move away from that criteria, but we need to make sure that that criteria is suitable for the roles they're going to go into, what the employers are looking for and what industry is looking for and everything else. And that we're certain that the overall experience they're having is a positive experience.
Yes.
And I think the more that we consider the different areas that we have influence over, we can control what goes on in our classroom, we can control what goes on within our modules, and how our students engage with that, and the currency and the coherence of what we're delivering and everything else. And they're the things that we need to consider. I think the landscape is going to change greatly over the next couple of years, let alone the next 5 to 6 years. But I think for me, it's about making sure that what we are doing is right for our students and is the right for the journey that they are on. They're investing a huge amount of time and money in their education, and we are either a very large part or a very small part of their education, depending on where we sit within different modules and different programs and different faculty and everything else. But we need to make sure that we're doing the best by our students. So that's making sure that our resources are up to date. Our VLE has everything on it that it needs to do to be able to facilitate that learning. We're giving them all the opportunities to be able to be part of their student experience and part of that community of practice that we are creating and everything else. We're assessing them in appropriate ways, and we are there to be able to support them within their academic journey.
Yeah, and I hope we head towards the right goalpost, right? And we should have the right learning experience, and the right should be defined as per the new era, right? This is what I believe. Thank you so much, Professor Leela. Right now, I cannot express my gratitude to you, because last 45 minutes, oh my God, that's brilliant, and we have been really appreciated. At one point, we touched 300 plus live listeners, right? At this time, imagine this all. Everybody's so fast moved around in the offices. At 12 p.m. people joined, they kept listening, and at one time we touched 300 plus live listeners. So thank you so much for your time, Professor Leela. It has been a pleasure hosting you, and what an acumen, what an excellence, right, you have in academics. So maybe in future we have Professor Leela 2.0, our redefining teaching and learning. And
it'll be a pleasure, Ali.
Thank you. And for listeners, right, of course, I cannot promise on behalf of Professor Leela, but once she gets time, she can go through the comments and she can respond to a few. And also, in future, if we cannot cover in this podcast, we can cover with another academician. Thank you so much again, Professor Leela. Any final thoughts before we close?
No, it's just been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully, there are some budding non-traditionalists out there that will give things a go where coaching and innovative pedagogies are concerned.
Thank you, Professor Leela. Have a nice day and have a nice evening.
And you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.